How's it, everyone? Welcome back to episode 16 of our Portugal campaign. We are on the new patch, so just quick disclaimer, 1.2 came out a couple days ago. There is a chance that it breaks the save. It suggested that you should start a new game, but obviously we're pretty deep in this campaign. I figured let's try it and go. So far so good. It seems to be working, so let's carry on with it. Now, a couple of things have been reworked and changed, so I'm going to quickly go through this bar and comment on anything that's relevant, and then we'll carry on with the game. First thing to mention is that we have too many relations, so they've reworked the way in which diplomatic capacity works. Looking here, we can see that Portugal is now using an extensive amount of its diplomatic capacity because it is based on the economic base of a country now, so we need to decide what the hell we're going to do about reducing this. Now, France we want to keep. The question is, can we keep either Aragon or England? Who's more important? Probably Aragon. So I think the alliance with England has got to go. Does look like England are breaking the alliance anyway, so I think we're probably happy to say goodbye to England. I don't know if we can break it off straight away. We can. Sorry guys, that's it done. So that should address the majority of our issues. We're still a little bit over. Can we increase our budget? Oh god, that doesn't impact it anymore. Okay, this is bad. Yeah, so increasing diplomatic spending does not impact diplomatic capacity. It does say that it should be, so maybe if we bump it right to the top, let's see what it does. No, it doesn't do it, so they've obviously not updated that tooltip. Okay, shit. Right, so we're dealing with some pretty meaty problems now. We're losing prestige, we've lost 7% crown power, 7% antagonism received, 7% reduction in our efficiency of our cabinet. This is bad. This is quite bad indeed. Okay, so I wonder if there's anything that we can do to address that. God, and we've lost a core as well. So another change that they've made to the game is that if a location has a culture that isn't accepted within your country, you'll lose the core. So if we go to our cultures screen, you can see that Miranda is Aster Leonese. So we probably need to think about maybe accepting that. I mean, it is just one location. We'll have a think about that, but obviously we want to keep the cores where we can, so maybe it's worth it. But it is going to cost diplomatic capacity, I think, now that I think about it. Oh, we can't even do it. Look, we don't meet the requirements because there's not enough people to allow it. Okay, we've rejigged some of our budget, so it looks like they've reworked the equilibriums for a lot of the classes. Nobility is much happier with us, which is great. We're getting a huge amount of tax off of them as well. Same for the burghers. Commoners less so, but still some notable tax there. Looks like we're getting a massive 70 ducats per month now, so that's really good. Oh my god, annoyingly, it's deleted all my keyboard shortcuts, for fuck's sake. Fear and Loathing in Lisboa. If any of you have seen Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, it's a fantastic film, I really recommend it. Twilight is always horrid, the clouds racing circles across moonless skies, cruel stars suspended like grains of broken glass, and chandeliers throwing strange shadows across the royal chambers. Lately, a strange sense has come upon the king that there is something wrong with the place. The geometry of it seems unsound. Thinking back, it all started with the birth of Crown Princess Beatrice. Uh-oh, that's not good. Oh my god, he could kill her. I don't think we're going to do that because she's our heir, so Lord God our Father, thou art in heaven. So I think it's suggesting she's a bit of a witch or something. And we've had foreign wisdom from Etel Friedrich. While the nobility is somewhat perturbed at the idea of a foreigner working for the king, East Franconia minister Etel Friedrich von Hohenzollern has been widely praised for bringing fresh ideas and practices to the court. We get 10 prestige, 5 legitimacy, that's fantastic. Oh cool, look, so there's a little icon now. It looks like a shovel or a spade, and it suggests when there's a bonus for buildings in the province. There's an RGO bonus, that's cool, that's pretty cool. So this is something that's going to take a bit of time to wrap my head around, but my understanding is trade has had a huge rework, specifically with things like the distance to travel, as well as the type of good you're transporting and so on. And a lot of goods have also had their prices reworked. So that's what I'm going to spend a bit of time now, just correcting some of these trades and having a look and seeing what we can do about it. Okay, we researched Renaissance building methods, but we'll look at that in a second. I am playing on bloody 1 speed. But there's so much to change and look at that it's quite hard to actually do it. Okay, I've reworked some of the trades and we're going to see how that kicks off. So We've got some jewellery from Argene. There's a lot of gold in the Mali markets, so it's a good place to get it from. It's a bit of saffron just because we can't get it at home. Silver and gold, useful as always. Exporting quite a lot of furniture, and then getting a few other goods like dyes and lead and so on, which is useful for our production. So for now, let's see how that carries on, but it should be okay. Katarina died. Whatever. Okay, let's build a spy network in Castile, as always. Okay, and in terms of research, we have obviously embraced the New World, so we're going to just beeline all of these techs as much as we can. We'll go for the New World first. Reduces exploration cost, increases colonial range, increases diplomatic range, so that's fantastic. As the Florentine navigator Amerigo Vespucci says, the land discovered by Columbus are not the Indies, but in fact a whole new world unknown to our ancients and waiting to be mapped and claimed. Fantastic. We want to try and get to explorer commissions to actually get someone who can then start mapping out the new world. Race off there. I'm going to put quite a lot of money into stability just to get us back to positive stability, and then we'll bring it back down. Okay, the month has ticked over, all the goods are profitable, rather all the trades are profitable, so that's fantastic. We're just going to mess around with a few of them from time to time. So young Dinis has had his first ruler trait. He is just. Due to a keen understanding of the many laws and customs of his realms, our subjects trust us to rule rightfully and justly. That's pretty good. Oh look, it looks like there's maritime presence on the sea lanes as well now. So we're going to need to try and increase the maritime presence across our various different colonies. That's quite an interesting tweak. I don't remember reading about that. Okay, so we'll stick the main fleet on the Iberian west coast, the Madeira Sea, and the Azores Sea, this sort of triangle here. And something new, so cabinet members can now gain traits. It looks like our brother Porto de Bourgogne, the ginger freak, has gained a cabinet trait, Theologian. So he can increase pop conversion speed by 25%. That's pretty good. Is he actually converting at the moment? If not, we will get him converting. Right, yeah, let's get him converting to Catholic, the areas that are low. So I think we'll start with the Canaries. There are some small pockets of other faiths in the mainland, but not enough to warrant bothering with it. Okay, so next issue on the horizon, we have some pirates kicking about around here. So we were going to get these guys gathering food, and then we were going to get them patrolling whatever this is called, the West Africa coastline. We might need to build up a bit more of a presence here because we've only got 3 light ships, but I just wanted to basically stop the pirates if possible. Tell you what, I'm going to build a dock in Santiago because these guys, maybe we should name them the West African Fleet. There we go. So these guys have pretty poor strength and they're not going to recover here because we don't actually have a proper base here just yet. So we're going to build a dock. We're going to get these guys off to Santiago and they'll recover, and then once they're ready to go, we'll sling them back here and try and secure up the shore. Oh yeah, look, you can see it's projected outwards now. So we've got good control of the coast around the mainland. That's to be expected, but obviously it's quite poor around here. Interesting change, I quite like that. And we've done the task for ensuring book production. Kind of forgot I did that, to be honest, but that's great. Okay, gosh, this is going to take a while because we need to have 14 fully staffed libraries. We've got 11, and I don't think we can put them anywhere else. We need 12 theatres, which we don't have any at all, and we need to push towards innovative and embrace pike and shot. So this is sort of a long-term play now. Oh, Etel's dead. That's a shame. He was a bloody rebel for so long that we barely got to use him, and he committed suicide. Selfish bastard. We'll appoint Fernando de Bourgogne in his place. Okay, and I want to try out this new thing. So this is trade orders. This is a way that you can sort of preload some trades and automatically direct goods to be imported or exported without specifying a destination. So in our case, what we want to do is we want to set up a trade order for an export of furniture because we're producing a lot of furniture with all the wood we have. And then we are going to automatically redirect it to the best place. This should make trading easier, basically. Okay, for some reason, unbeknownst to me, you can't actually select what goods you want to do. I think it just stacks the top 5 most needed goods and the top 5 overproduced goods. I think that's quite dumb, to be honest. I prefer to be able to have a choice over what I automate. But anyways, we'll automate a few trades. Okay, and we've had Dance Macabre. To the king, the royal chamber is a swirling mist of scents and shapes, coming and going into and out of existence like colourful snowflakes. He's hungry, so very hungry, as if he had not eaten in months. The stars looking down on him, still suspended in a moonless sky, laugh and dance. They seem wild and free. There is something about those stars. They seem so right. He has gone quite insane. Oh my god. He might die at the age of 19. Oh, I can't do that. 50 stability and 20 prestige. Oh my god, we're going into another regency. Oh my god, what the hell do we do? I don't want to go to another regency. This is going to be so painful, but we're going to take the bad Malus, not by the hair of his chin. Ugh, that is so painful. So our estates are really irritated with us now. This is going to be bad. We're just going to have a period of quiet now. Right, in an effort to boost some of our prestige and legitimacy, this has just changed massively. Look at it changing like the wind. We are going to canonize King Afonso IV. I'm just going to hang fire a little bit and hope it goes up. Yeah, look, now it's gone to 19 prestige. Yeah, let's do that. Boom. So we got 20 pretty much prestige from that, and also quite a lot of legitimacy, which is irrelevant. And our very first character, King Afonso, is now a saint. Right, let's do a round of RGO building. So we can upgrade the salt, we can upgrade the horses, and we can upgrade the salt in Faro. And then I want to do 1, 2, 3, 4 lots of wheat, just to try and boost our food stockpile. Okay, look, we can get an extra 1 diplomatic capacity from the printing press, what's it called, institution, but it's still not going to be enough, really. So this reworking of the diplomacy thing is quite impactful, really, for gameplay. To be honest, I think it's probably quite good, because having an alliance with both France and England basically made me invincible and arrogant. I'm sort of in agreement with it. Right, we need to increase the amount of men we are generating, because our army is basically taking more than we're supplying. Right, so it looks like the costs of the buildings are actually impacted by the availability of the resource in the location. You can see it's cheaper in some of these locations than in Lisbon, for example. It's very expensive. So that's quite interesting. So we will build them in some of the cheaper provinces. We'll do 1 in Viseu, 1 in Coimbra. And for good measure, we're also going to build a couple gunsmiths. Coimbra's got a decent production, and as does Viseu. And we're out of money now. Fantastic, we've got the new world, so that will help. We're obviously just going to keep pushing down that track, so what's the best thing to get next? Let's go for explorer commissions. We can get explorers then, and then we can start trying to get out into the new world. Beyond our shores lie uncharted lands, ripe for the taking. We shall recruit brave explorers to set course for the unknown and bring back exotic goods. This is a vital and possibly very lucrative opportunity for us. Following that, we are going to go for colonial charters, because that will help grow some of the colonies in Africa. These new documents will ensure the rights of our countrymen when they settle the untamed new world. They give our colonies the exclusive right of governing these new lands and regulate their relationship with the mother country. And look, there's a whole tab for food now, so this is quite an interesting and good way of being able to monitor your food stockpiles. Unless this was always here and I just never saw it. Looks like they've reworked proximity, because look, some of these locations are cut off again. Montalegre definitely wasn't too far away from the capital, so that's annoying. Right, let's get another exploration on the go. I know we've got a plan to get some actual proper explorers soon, but for now, I just want to keep ahead of Castile. So we'll get Dinis de Bourgogne, not least because it will help not be confusing with the actual King Dinis. We'll send him off. Okay, Beatrice is gregarious, so we'll get her on a education that forces that. I think it's diplomatic. Let's work on repairing the relationship with England after burning them twice. But look, they've added a whole tab for events, dynamic historical events, so you can actually see what happens and what doesn't happen. Off they go to Central Africa. Fantastic, so we've got explorer commissions now, so we're going to hire an explorer as soon as possible. Just having a look to see if we can sow discontent and if that will be useful at all for us with Castile. I don't really think it is, to be honest. Right, let's have a look at an explorer. They've discovered our agent. God, I should have done it. I should have done something with the spy network. Right, let's get an explorer. We have got Caetano Ramirez. He is an explorer. He's a scientist on sea, which gives us an extra 0.25. That's amazing. So we should probably try and get another exploration going. Or rather, we'll swap these guys out for now. So we'll put Caetano on the exploration into Central Africa. Gosh, it massively speeds it up now. He's going to get there in 8 months. It's a huge, huge increase to our exploration efforts. Right, let's build some buildings in Lisbon, try and increase our take-home profit. Glass guilds are profitable, gunsmiths profitable. That's all our money. Right, looks like there's more bridges we can build on as well. So we'll build one in Santarém. Foreign trade competition rises. Foreign merchants are increasingly outcompeting our own in our kingdom's ports, flooding our markets with cheap goods produced elsewhere. This is making it difficult for our merchants to make a living. They have come before King Dinis to propose a new tariff on foreign goods, which would help protect them from competition from abroad. There shall be no new tariffs. We want to keep pushing capital economy. One thing that I have noticed here is that the urbanization effort no longer does anywhere near as much as it used to do. It's only promoting 9 people per turn. So all of these buildings that I've just built are not going to employ for a very long time, which is quite concerning. Caetano is a distinguished midshipman. Upon the successful return of the expedition, we hear that Caetano gives much credit to a promising young officer. Oh, my apologies, he wasn't the midshipman. Give him command of his own expeditions. Oh, we can get another explorer. Hell yeah, let's do it. We are going to then prioritize overseas exploration after the colonial charter one, because this will allow us to get open sea exploration. So it will actually allow us to start going across the Atlantic, which is the primary goal. Oh, look, Castile actually took the southern part of that was owned by Morocco, and they're probably going to take Granada as well. Not ideal. Gosh, this is quite a concern, really. I mean, look at the numbers of people who are unable to promote. I don't know if they've done this right in the patch. They seem to have gone a bit too far the other way. We'll promote Karl von Hohenzollern to the head of the cabinet because it gives an extra 25% efficiency, and he's got the best stats, really. So we lose some legitimacy, but that's okay. We'll recover it quite quickly. Okay, these guys are repaired now, so let's go and patrol the West African coastline, please. And just as we've promoted him, he's become fickle, which means we lose 1% max tax. So thanks, Carl. Thank you very much for that. Right, we are going to go for a census with our parliament issue because we can gain 7 stability, which will obviously help our stability woes, and also increases population growth a little bit in the meantime. The difficulty with it is, I was going to say it starts off with low support, but it's actually pretty supported already. So we just need to keep an eye on this and then maybe give them some agenda in order to get it over the line. Okay, fantastic. We've got colonial charters, so this is really going to help with the exploration efforts. Good stuff indeed. It's actually boosted our monthly income by about 9 ducats per month, it looks like. Cool, we've got another holy relic. I read this, I think, even last episode, but it's good for our culture and so on. Here it is, the Mantle of Lisboa. Or it could be this one. No, it's this one. No, it's this one. Here it is, the Jewels of Lisboa, Masterpiece Regalia. Right, we can give Viseu an urban parliament seat for the extra support. That means we don't need to give any favours or anything to get the 50%. And also we've had another bring in marriageable women. This time in Bonny, we saw this last time, but that's really helpful actually because this fledgling colony is not growing super quick. It's had a good boost since the colonial charters has come through, but it's still quite small, so good to push that one along. Right, so the biggest idiot of the week award goes to none other than yours truly. I've just come back to look at the footage and turns out my mic was muted for the last hour of this footage. So rather than trying to redo it all and emulate what happened, we're just going to do a post-production voiceover of what's happened. So what I was talking about here was basically just about the urban rights. This is a new thing that came around in 1.2. Basically, these different types of privileges you can grant urban centres, and they give them special bonuses and so on. So I was talking specifically here about the staple ports because that seems most appropriate for some of our locations, primarily for the increased maritime presence and harbour capacity. So we ended up putting this in Porto as well as Setúbal, and there's another one that's geared towards military stuff, which I think we put in Viseu, but that'll come up in just a little bit later. We also had a couple of events here. So we had one from Pope Julie Richard III, basically talking about people in the colonies shouldn't be slaves, they're not brutes, and they should really be spread or converted to the Catholic faith. and we had a couple options with relation to that. So we basically had the option of either increasing the rated population conversion speed, or we could get a 5% raw materials output. This was just in Cape Verde, and I thought it would be better to just go for the conversion. So as I mentioned earlier, you can see here that I'm applying the staple port to Setúbal as well as Porto. The main idea behind this is that the staple port effectively increases the harbour capacity as well as the maritime presence of the location, amongst a few other things. But the idea behind why I picked those two locations, as you'll see on the screen in just a second, is that I am prioritising the places with the best harbour capacity. And the reason for that is harbour capacity directly impacts proximity, which will eventually impact control and therefore tax base. So I'm trying to basically play the geography to our advantage, build up the places that will receive the most benefit first, and then we'll start to look at improving some of the other places like Viana and Faro and so on. Negative cabinet member trait, Fernando de Begoña got the corrupt trait, minus 10% tax efficiency, not at all ideal. Fortunately, we were in a position to ask Aragon for some money, so they gave us 500 approximately ducats, and we then started to use that to build up the economy. Started with a dock in Faro, again of the same vein with respect to the harbour capacity, increases it by 0.1, trying to build that up because that might be the next place that we give a staple port to. Turning to Lisbon, I realised we didn't have a counting house, so I built a counting house in the capital for the extra crown power, and in Porto I built 2 levels of the tannery to increase our leather production. In Setúbal, because our market access was about 95%, I built a couple marketplaces for the 0.5% market access, trying to connect it better to the Lisbon market effectively. I started looking at all our other locations and tried to build up a few pieces of industry in the various different places, trying to make use of the burghers that we have in the various locations. So in Ponte de Sor, we built a spinners guild. In Beja, we built a gunsmith. In Coimbra, we built a tools guild. In fact, 2 levels, I believe. In Viseu, we built a saltpeter guild, and then we started looking at the urban right known as Foros Extensos, which I believe is a Portugal unique urban right, specifically geared towards increasing manpower, levy size, and so on. So I built this one in Viseu, or I granted it in Viseu, because I wanted to try and give a certain area a specific focus towards building up our manpower. I noticed in Viseu we actually had 2 armories, so it seemed like a good place. Meanwhile, I didn't want to fall behind in our exploration efforts, so I sent Antonio off to explore the West African coastline, the Congo coastline. Therefore, I was also looking at our population and trying to think of ways to potentially grow our population. At the same time, I noticed that we had a shortfall of masonry, likely because of all of the buildings that we were making, so I decided to spend a bit of money and build up some masons. So we built a mason in Lisbon due to the fact that we had sufficient available workforce, and unfortunately one of our admirals died, Fadrique. So we built one up in Lisbon, we built one up in Setúbal, and I believe we also built one up in Santarém. I lie, we built one in Porto. Following Fadrique's death, we needed to appoint another admiral in Africa, and we appointed our second cousin Dinis, primarily because our king is called Dinis and it's a bit confusing. And at the same time, we also got the research that allowed us to start exploring over open sea. So immediately we sent off an exploration via the, I don't know what that's called, the African Atlantic Trailwind or something. And we sent our good friend Caetano off to explore and hopefully find the new world. In terms of the next tech, we picked Quest for the New World because it increases our exploration progress and also decreases the time it takes to prepare for an exploration. So just to read it out, allows us to join the nations set to explore the world outside their borders, or strive to be the first nation to circumnavigate the globe by commencing a quest for the new world. Due to the changes in 1.2, I noticed that most of the RGOs were taking an absolutely enormous time to fully populate. This is something that's going to be a recurrent issue that I still haven't quite figured out how to solve, but basically I was just addressing the fact that we don't have enough people. Also, the urbanizing cabinet action no longer is anywhere near as powerful, and so a lot of people aren't going to be able to fully employ for a long time. King Dinis gained the secretive trait, which isn't super productive really, but it basically gives them a bit of counter-espionage and pushes towards centralization, which is pretty neat. One of the things that's new in the 1.2 patch, which I was talking about here, is the fact that we can now get an insight into the attitudes of AI nations. So you can see here Castile has a cautious personality, which means that they're less likely to declare war with us and all of the other various modifiers, but they do, however, covet our land. They cover 67 of our territories, which is basically all of the mainland. So it means, given the opportunity, particularly if they're overwhelmingly likely to win, they will come at us again. With that in mind, of course, a spy network is necessary in Castile. As you can see here, if we get it to above 25, we actually get an insight into what their overall strategic desire is. Plot twist, we don't actually get there because they discover it too quick. And due to these very competent explorers, we had discovered the North Equatorial Current. So we got landfall across the Atlantic, and we were starting now to try and explore some of North and South America. Accidentally built up the marble in Villa Viçosa. Looks like I could cancel it, but I don't think I did in the end. I think I just left it. And there's the exploration off to the Antille. Following on from our recent lucky event where we got a city in Angra, I noticed that there was quite a huge burgher population that was unemployed. Meanwhile, the Congo coastline had been discovered, started all kicking off quite quickly. But we started using some of our money to build up some buildings in Angra. We ended up building 6 marketplaces, which in hindsight I'm not exactly sure if that was the right play, but again, it was to try and improve the market access of Angra, to try and get it to full 100% access, which is a bit strange because the market centre is in Angra, so I'm not sure why it's not connected to its own market, but hey ho. Despite the naval range looking like we couldn't actually get there, it did seem possible to send another exploration, so Antonio headed off to try and round the Cape of Good Hope on the southern tip of Africa. We got the research for Quest for the New World, and this is when you can really start to see our explorations ramping up. We start to come thick and fast with our exploration efforts. Next tech we selected was actually Beat to Windward, another 0.10 exploration monthly progress. Lateen-rigged caravels are highly manoeuvrable, allowing them to easily tack against the wind. This makes sailing through unfavourable weather and hostile seas much quicker. Our stockpile of sailors was building up, so I decided to use some of our extra money to build a couple more carracks and a few more caravels. So in every place that wasn't building a carrack, we built a few more caravels. In fact, in addition to the places that were having carracks built. And just like that, we had completed the exploration on the Karoo coast, and it was now time to embrace the printing press. The ability to mass produce the written word would revolutionize the spread of information and, in many ways, society as a whole. Pioneered by talented individuals such as Venetian printer Aldus Manutius, this new art helped fuel the Renaissance by making the translated classics more widely available. Later, the Reformation benefited greatly from the ability to spread critical publications and translations of the Holy Scriptures. Now that the printing has matured as a technique and spread throughout Europe, hundreds of thousands of copies of everything from religious and political pamphlets to scientific treatises to etiquette guides are circulating the continent. With print shops growing ever more commonplace, rulers have found it hard to contain the new technique, as the comparatively easy means of production means censorship can be sidestepped by moving on business across a border or even just changing the name on a title page. And we'd finally discovered the Antille. We got a cool event known as the Discovery of a New World. After a long and difficult journey, one of our expeditions has returned to Portugal with a miraculous message. They landed on a small island where they encountered people wearing gold ornaments and speaking in a foreign language. According to the reports, this might be an alternative route to the Indies, but some have started to discuss that it might be an entirely unknown continent. We could start establishing outposts on these islands to create a first step towards a colony and further explorations in the area. We got a huge 20 prestige, 5 research progress, and 360 ducats. Fantastic stuff. Naturally, we set about an immediate exploration of the Antille. We want to be the first superpower getting to these islands, so Caetano was the man who stepped up to the plate. Food seemed to be a constant issue in Angra, so we built up another level of fish in the Angra location, which in hindsight wasn't the best idea because we're building marketplace after marketplace. Probably should have done it in one of the other places in the Azores. I recognised that the naval force that we had on the West African coastline was just insufficient to combat the pirates. So what we did was we built a couple more ships and we sent them down to join the fleet. I realised that what we should also be doing is just trying to colonise, or rather explore, everywhere as possible. So we sent off 2 brothers in arms to the various different places in the New World. So we sent off Itil Frederico de Macedo de Cavaleiros, a massive mouthful, off to the East Caribbean Sea, and we sent his brother Alexandre de Macedo de Cavaleiros off to the Lucayas Sea. Here are the ships now ready to go off to the West African coastline, so we brought them all together and we sent them firstly to Santiago because of the attrition they would experience travelling down, and once they'd recovered, send them off to the West African coastline. We finished researching the next tech, and I took a sidestep onto the printing press, primarily for the max literacy. The popularization of printing techniques this century has resulted in the wider spread of knowledge, as well as easier exchange of information by speeding up the duplication of important manuscripts. The reason for doing this is because of the issues we're having with people employing in buildings. Literacy will directly impact the ability to promote people, and so that was the priority there. The ships were finally ready and had rejoined the other 3 ships in the West African coastline, and as you can see, we were now making meaningful difference to the maritime presence in the location. Also new with the 1.2 patch is the addition of the city walls defensive building, and as you can see here, you get 10% market attraction if built in the market centre, so ultimately I decided to build one in Lisbon, even though it will impact our crown power. However, because we built the counting house beforehand, that plus 33% becomes plus 23 when taking into account the effect from the city walls. However, market attraction is very difficult to come by, so I think it was a worthwhile trade. So we did eventually decide to put it in, and it does take an extremely long time to build. Our exploration on the Karoo coast had finished, and we had now mapped the southern tip of Africa. Of course, we immediately sent Antonio further afield, trying to keep projecting along to India, hopefully Indonesia in the future. Meanwhile at home, we had a new parliament to debate. Now, interestingly enough, it looks like they've added a bunch of new issues because the majority of these I had not seen before. Ultimately, we decided to pick sponsor irrigation projects. As you can see by the prosperity comparison here, for some reason our prosperity is just less than Castile, and it's something that I've been wanting to work on, and the irrigation project gives 0.2% whilst it's being debated. If it's successful, gives 0.3% plus something else that I can't remember. But overall, we decided to go for this issue. There it is there. So it's minus 25% farming cost, but 0.3% for 10 years if we get it. Now we started off with 30% support, and we had a pretty good option to address some of the toll castles. Toll castles aren't that good, they reduce market access and increase nobility power, so we used one of the options to get rid of 2 of them, brought our support up to 46%, but did piss off the nobility. At the same time, we set off for the Lucayas Sea. Fortunately, however, we got an event asking to marry a leading figure in the army with one of our distant relatives, and it actually improved the nobility's opinion, so it sort of mellowed itself out. We then got the issue for a demand for city walls in Angra, also a market centre, so we decided to go for it. Silves changed stance, gave us another 5% support, so as you can see we're now up to 83%, and this is when I started thinking we've got quite a lot of support here and we might want to use the 50% to do something, and that decision was to fabricate a casus belli on Sevilla. This of course reduced our support by 50% down to 33%, so we supported some communal values to get us up to 43%. I realised we were unlikely to get another event, so we embraced some traditional ideas just to get that issue over the line. Unfortunately, it went through without a hitch, so we got irrigation projects, which will help with our prosperity. And thankfully, I've pretty much caught you back up now, so the last thing that I was really looking at was the comparison of the 2 sides. France seemed to be happy to join us in the war if we give them some territory, so one of my main focuses now is to try and separate Aragon from Castile, to peel them off, and if we can just fight Castile 1 versus 2, I think we've got a pretty strong chance of winning the war. And then the last event we had was the University of Porto. The University of Porto had attracted a new strand of teachers and students eager to modernise the institution. They were asking for funding in order to open a new college where they could further develop what they called new science, with a more experimental outlook and what they claimed to be a less dogmatic approach to the world. Of course, within the existing academy there was some resistance to these would-be reformers, and they argued that the money could be better spent supporting the existing institutions, as new ideas are not necessarily better ideas. Ultimately, we decided to give them the funding because we got a massive 15 research progress and we had the spare cash to hand. So this helped us project further, immediately get printing press, and we used this extra tech to pick handgunners, primarily because we want to strengthen our army if we are going to go against Castile. So handgunners wield a new type of gunpowder-filled weapon that fires deadly lead shells, wreaking havoc on enemy lines. However, they're very slow to reload. Right, and we're back in the live commentary. So yeah, sorry about that. It was it was actually really tedious to have to do another voiceover. Hopefully it wasn't too disruptive, but we're back in real time. So we got basically 4 years to try and see whether we want to press this casus belli. I'm really inclined to do it, to be honest, because I think now is a good chance. And ideally what I'd look to take is Huelva and Sevilla. I could take these 2 provinces. I'd be very, very happy with our success. Is it going to be possible? Oh, France are no longer keen anymore. That's no bueno. So that might nip that in the bud. Let's sabotage the reputation with France. See if that does anything. Not enough. I don't expect us to be able to take them on our own. So we need France. So we'll build on the basis of trying to press the casus belli. See if we can maybe swing them over. The difficulty is that they're actually quite keen on them. Are they not rivals? They're no longer rivals, you see. They have 11 enemies, the French. But unfortunately Castile is not one of them. Okay, well let's just carry on and see if we can get there. It's only 15 negative, so we could maybe profess trust once. That would get it to probably -5. We've discovered the Lesser Antille, which I will talk about in just a second. One of the things that I was looking at as part of the new patch is they've tried to rework naval warfare. And specifically, they've tried to lessen the impact of heavy ships, particularly in narrows and inland sea. Looking at Castile, they have 25 heavy ships. We're not going to be able to catch them up on that, which means that we need to fight them in the right territory. We need to try and catch them in this area here, where we'll have an advantage because of our navy composition. That said, we will still build another heavy ship. And even though it's going to be quite expensive because of our other colonial charters, I am going to go for one in Antille, or the Windward Isles, as it said here. We have cocoa, which is a new good for us to be able to get. The rest is pretty boring stuff, fish and fruit and so on. Unfortunately, you can't pick exactly where you colonize, so hopefully they pick that one first. Right, let's profess trust with the French, see how much of an impact that will make. -10 now. Okay. I mean, it says they lack a border, but they absolutely do have a border here. Cool, and we've got hand gunners, so we will at some point look to build them up. The next research we're going to do is something to do with our levies. So let's go here for Reformed Crusader Knights. Unlocks a regular regiment, which we're not that bothered about, but it does increase or create Reformed Crusader Knights as a levy, which is basically better than what we'd have at the moment. Adapting to the changing warfare, the Crusader Knights adopted new tactics and refined weaponry. With these adaptations, they will retain their status as the elite forces of the religious military orders. We've discovered the East Caribbean Sea. Let's build another spy network in Castile, see if we can ruin the reputation between them and the French. Do need to get Aragon out of this as well. If we can get Aragon out, that would be fantastic. Got a decent admiral here, Alexio de la Foeche. I'm pretty sure this is the guy who got married in that event not too long ago. So we'll appoint him. My god, everyone is dying at the moment. Our mum died by falling down a set of stairs. Cool, we've got the South African coastline. Fantastic stuff. France have requested to improve culture opinion. We can accept that, that's absolutely fine. And I think we now have reached the limit of our naval range, so we'll have to start colonizing down here to get any further. Cool, and we've got Reformed Crusader Knights. That'll help increase the strength of our army just a touch. And likewise, we've discovered the Lucaya Sea. And we have another distinguished midshipman. So let's get another explorer. Fantastic. I think we're going to go for both of these, try and get a bit of extra initiative. See if we can push down there. So organized army march, 1% army morale recovery speed. Managing armies becomes increasingly more complex as they become less reliant on levies. A key aspect of this is improved organization of armies on the march, which helps the troops to be more prepared if a battle occurs. And then we'll go for first strike, which is 20% initiative. The element of surprise combined with landing the first strike often determines the ultimate victory in an armed conflict. Boosting our military initiative is an excellent way to maintain a competitive advantage. We're going to recruit another Hoofnice, try and strengthen our army a little bit. I'm pretty confident I want to take a pop at them if we can get France on side. And we have a son. We're going to call him Sebastião, based on a recommendation from one of my faithful followers. Sebastião. Growth of the economy. Our policy of cooperation with the burghers has come to bear fruit in the form of economic development in many fields. The cities of the burghers are prospering and our influence in international trade is growing rapidly. Fantastic. So Beja has benefited from that. Where is Beja? Down here. Prosperity of 45%. I don't think things are going to go our way. We can't ruin the reputation with Aragon because we cannot build any more favours. Can't carry any more favours. We've already got the maximum. And there's no other way, as far as I'm aware, to break the alliance between these two. In addition to that, we also can't seem to get France keen to go to war. The margins are very slim though. +6 for Aragon, -9 for France. There is every chance that this could flip. Okay, we've got organised army march. We're going to build another armoury in Porto and one in Santarém. Profess trust with the French again. Let's see how that impacts things. -4. Jeez, that was quick. We've got our first colony in the New World in Alubera. Very cool. The clergy have donated a statue to us. That's good. And we've got the doctrine of particular judgment. As we know, when we die, God judges us immediately and decides what each soul's fate is to be as it awaits the final judgment. However, a monk in Tomar has started a doctrinal dispute that verges on heresy, claiming that there is no purgatory and saying that prayers for the dead do not assist their passage into heaven. These disputes are threatening the very unity of the church. I think we'll just say he's probably a heretic and lose some religious influence. We've got a year and a half before it runs out. Cool, we got first strike. Next tech, I think we're going to maybe pivot towards some of the new world tech, specifically the caravel. This might give us a bit of a naval advantage because the other nations haven't yet discovered it. The caravel was a small, very maneuverable ship which could sail with high precision on long discovery journeys. Although designs varied, a caravel had a foresail, a square mainsail, and a lateen mizzen. Its smaller size limited the number of guns on board, but it also meant that this light ship could explore shallow coastal waters and estuaries. Vasco da Gama, Cabo, Columbus and Magellan used caravels during their late 15th and early 16th century voyages. Come on, France, you really don't like Castile. Let's get them, let's get them. I wonder if we could send them a gift of money. And then that would get us there. Also, we could send Aragon a gift and get favours, and then break the alliance off. And it's much cheaper. Let's do that. Okay. Isolate from Castile. That's one of them done. Also, the bright side being that Aragon will now join on our side. So the only thing we need to get is France on side, and then we can do it. We've got about a year. Okay, I'm feeling quite confident it's going to work, so let's get another regiment. We'll go for our first Reformed Crusader Knights. And we've had a son. Let's call him Ronaldo. He's basically the only famous Portuguese person I know. We'll also remove the mothballing of our main heavy carracks, start repairing these ships because they're going to be needed in a few months. Oh my god, the Great Pestilence. A mysterious plague is ravaging the natives in Alubera. It is infecting the indigenous populations at an alarming rate, independently of their class or piety. The disease is unpredictable and deathly, sometimes producing fevers and rashes, sometimes vomiting or delirium, and almost always ending in death. The speed of the contagion and morbidity of the symptoms is leaving our doctors perplexed and impotent. There is little else we can do besides deliver last rites and dig graves. The Columbian Exchange was a historical event that took place in the 15th and 16th century when Old and New World came into contact. This period was marked by the exchange of people, plants, animals, and ideas, leading to significant changes in both continents. The arrival of new crops in Europe, such as maize, potatoes, and tomatoes, while tobacco and cocoa became popular commodities. The introduction of new diseases in the Americas had a devastating effect on the indigenous population, who had no immunity to illnesses like smallpox and influenza. Oh dear. Oh gosh, our agent's been discovered in Castile, not ideal. Right, let's see if this works. We're going to send France a massive gift. 400 ducats. Didn't do anything. What a waste of money. Oh, I really thought that was going to work. What can we do? What can we do? Right, I think our last potential shot is to profess trust. It's very close to the deadline, so if this doesn't work, then we've got no chance. Meanwhile, in Alubera, people are dropping like flies because of this pestilence. I'm annoyed that the money was completely wasted. It was 400 ducats, that could have been much better spent elsewhere. Okay, we've had another parliament and we've got a 50% manpower potential, so let's go for this because that will help build our ranks just whilst we try and get ourselves ready for this war. Okay, moment of truth, profess trust one more time. We've got a Castilian exile. We've had this event before, let's bring him over. Ruins their opinion. We've also had the closer ties thing again, so we'll go for that, definitely. Is that enough? Yes. Holy hell, we're going to war. Right, the last thing to do is just to wait a little bit longer, try and build up some of our gold reserves. But we are doing this. We are going to war. Let's increase all of our budgets for the military things. Let's get ready. We'll take in all of the Castilian exiles, for soon they shall be under our rule. Okay, 1st of October, it's time to go. Castile, your time is nigh. Boom.